2 rounds to go to crown the 1988 Drivers' World Champion, and the pressure seems to be getting to Senna. Can he hold on, or will teammate Prost storm through to claim another title? The 1988 Japanese Grand Prix is next. Welcome back everybody to the penultimate round of the first season of Streamline, a custom F1 challenge series, universe thing, whatever it's called. Today we have the Japanese Grand Prix at the Suzuka circuit, a circuit that's only been on the calendar since, I believe, the previous season, 1987. There is no rain predicted for this weekend, as this is Martin Brundle's second to last race for the team. It's been a learning process, I think, for the whole season. Not just for the team, but for Brundle as well, as he'll be heading on to pastures new next season with Brabham. Constructors' Championship heading into this one, we already know Honda, McLaren, Marlboro have won the championship, and then it's a battle. Not even for second place. I think Ferrari have got second place nailed down. Lotus aren't going to be catching. Benetton and Williams seem to be maybe the hottest battle on the grid. If any of the front teams slip up, they can definitely capitalise and score some points. And maybe one of the lower teams who haven't scored a point so far this season could get their name on the points board before season end. We'll have to wait and see on that one. We have another vote today. If you want to vote for the reserve driver for Streamline, make sure to join the Streamline Discord. Link is in the description. Then head to the drivers section and you can vote. There's some interesting names on the board for the shortlist, as you can see right here. My personal pick, I'd probably go with Wendlinger, maybe. I think that'll be my pick. We don't have quite the finances for a reserve and a test driver, so the reserve driver will just be covering both reserve and testing duties. But of course we will have 2 main drivers for next season. Martin Brundle, though, 68 race starts. I always think he's more experienced by this point in time, but of course he's not, because in real life Formula 1 he did stay for many, many years after 1988. He was on the grid all the way up until 1996, of course. Don't know if it'll be the same in this universe. We'll have to wait and see. That's the excitement of it. Speaking about excitement, speaking about news. Well, we are speaking about news because it is F1 News of the Week. After news had spilled from a whistleblower in one of the teams, it has now been announced that March have hired Jean Alesi for the second driver position for 1989. Fellow French F3000 driver Eric Bernard is confirmed to be driving for Larousse next year. Ligier reserve driver Olivier Grouillard has been promoted to second driver for 1989. Alex Caffey is set to make a switch over to Minardi for next season, partnering Ivan Capelli. After AGS confirmed Dalmas as their first driver for next year, they have since confirmed the signing of Gabriel Tarquini to partner him. After his brilliant form filling in for the injured Capelli, Andy Wallace has been rewarded with a full-time seat at Tyrrell for next year. Streamline have signed Minardi's technical director Eamon Smith for next season to replace the outgoing Matt Hughes. Streamline have also brought in Ben Houseman as their race engineer for their new second car entry for next year. Streamline's reserve driver Martin Donnelly has now officially been announced as their second driver for next season's campaign. Ivan Stromgren is set to switch from Eurobrunn to Minardi in a chief designer role. Once again, Senna has the chance to clinch his first world title if he can outscore Prost by 4 points here today. And that is all for the news. Just a reminder of the team standings in terms of car performance. If you don't know it, there's no more upgrades at this stage of the season, but if you're new to the series, maybe you just want to know where we stand. We're 16th best, which is really rubbish. Let's check out the mail this week. We've got a few here because we've signed some contracts with some of the backroom staff. Firstly, it's Valtteri Cascatalo, contract extension, and he says, "I'd just like to say thank you for the chance to stay on in my role as chief designer for the team next year. We are fighting a constant uphill battle with a lack of resources in the team, but that will not discourage me from trying my best. I have a few strong ideas that I'd like to begin investigating ahead of pre-season testing next year." He is a really bad chief designer, but we don't have many options. We don't have the finances to get anybody really good, and there's not too many people in the chief designer market who we can hire, so I think he might be the worst or the second worst chief designer on the grid. Eamon Smith is a new technical director signed to replace Matt Hughes, and he says, "I appreciate the opportunity to work here as the technical director for the upcoming season. After working at Minardi in 1988, I managed to learn a lot about what it takes to succeed. We managed to score points this year, which shows I must have been doing something right. Maybe in 1989 we can drag Streamline closer to the points as well. Let's get started." That's a pretty big swoop, actually. Minardi are far ahead of us in the standings. in the pecking order as well. So getting their previous technical director, I think, is a very good deal. We've also signed Ben Houseman as our second driver's race engineer for 1989, and he says, "I've signed the contract and that should be with you now. I bring a lot of experience to the position of race engineer through my time at my previous team. It may take a while for the relationship to build up between myself and the driver, but once it does, I am sure success lies in store." I think he was unaware of who the actual second driver was when he signed the contract. Maybe he just needs a change of scenery, a new team. But we know the second driver, of course, will be Martin Donnelly. So hopefully Donnelly and Houseman can work well together. And finally, a message from the big boss, Barry Goodman, talking about the reserve driver. We have all the staff we need already signed up for next season, apart from the reserve driver position. I've checked off the shortlist that you have sent me, so I'll leave that with you and the board of directors to make a decision. Our recruitment has been a positive this year, as we have secured our first picks for most of the positions. Good job, Barry. Thank you, Barry. Yeah, if you want to vote on the reserve driver, make sure to join the Streamline Discord link in the description. And you can go ahead and vote for which driver we choose to sign. A quick look at the sponsors and suppliers, which aren't changing for the rest of the season, but feel free to pause the video to have a look at that if you're unsure. And let's have a look at what the media has been saying. Thomas Wood from What F1. Does Senna have the bottle? After round 9 of the season, it seemed the championship was a foregone conclusion, with Ayrton Senna having just wrapped up his third victory in a row. But since then, the Brazilian has only won one race in the past 5 attempts. Meanwhile, teammate Alain Prost has scored 28 points in that time, compared to Senna's 15. There are gaps in Senna's armour, and Prost is looking to swing for them. I did not notice when writing this if Senna did just score 15 points in the past 5 races, which is a meme in itself, of course. But yeah, Senna seems to be really struggling as of late. Maybe the pressure of a potential first championship on the line is harming his performance. James Emptage from Inside F1. Will 1989 be any closer? With the full ban of turbocharged cars for 1989, many people in the paddock are expecting the grid to be far more condensed than it has been this year. A total of 8 teams have failed to score points this year, whilst the battle at the top is non-existent, with McLaren boasting a 53-point lead over Ferrari and having already wrapped up the Constructors' crown. I think we should be cautious with our expectations for next year or season. He's got a point, it should be closer, but let's be cautious. We don't want to get our hopes up and be severely disappointed, but I do hope it is much closer between the front of the field and the back, and hopefully we get more than just one team battling for the championship. Jeff Bennett from Uni Motors. A new circuit in Spain. We will see a brand new circuit located in Barcelona in the coming years. Spain have won the rights to host the 1992 Olympic Games and have planned for a brand new state-of-the-art circuit to be created. Reports are suggesting development will begin during the upcoming winter, and we could see the circuit on the calendar as soon as 1990 if everything goes according to plan. If it is to be on the calendar for 1990, I assume it will be towards the end of the season, like the Spanish Grand Prix has been at Jerez this year. So maybe October time 1990 might be the target for the development of the circuit. Right, let's get into the action. Pre-qualifying for the upcoming Japanese Grand Prix. Pre-qualifying got underway in the sun, and Oscar Larori was first driver out on track. He encounters issues and stops by the side of the S's in Sector 1. Nicola Larini, the first driver, across the line to set a time, and duly goes fastest in the session, and then beaten by Bernd Schneider, the Zach Speed, with a good turn of pace in this session thus far. And then it's Oscar Larori's teammate Stefano Modena to go quickest. Larori did manage to get out late in the session and actually went 3rd place, which meant Piercarlo Ghinzani in the Zach Speed was slowest in the session, and he's knocked out in pre-qualifying. But it's Modena fastest, just ahead of Schneider and Larini. The top 3 so close together. Oscar Larori only had one real run near the end, but it was good enough to push Piercarlo Ghinzani into the drop zone. It means Piercarlo Ghinzani, I think, is still the only driver to have only qualified for one race. That being the 3rd round of the season, which I believe was Mexico. Anyway, let's go on to the main qualifying session. Qualifying was just like pre-qualifying in that it was sunny, and Daumas was the first driver to set a time, and that was quickly beaten by Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, who goes quickest as Martin Brundle decides to head out onto the circuit, and his first lap in the session was actually his fastest. So let's ride on board with Martin Brundle and his Streamline car for this lap of the Suzuka circuit. And going into this race, the analysts, I suppose you can call them, in the pit lane was expecting a mid 140 for pole position, as in a mid 45 maybe. But pole position was actually a lot slower than that. As you can see, Gerhard Berger's fastest right now, 48.7, which is nowhere near the predicted time of 45, which might indicate that the track conditions weren't quite up to par with what we were expecting going into this one. But Martin Brundle really struggling once again just to get that car turned in through that first sector. A bit of understeer, which we've come to expect with this car specifically. And it's really about finding a balance between downforce and drag, which has been Streamline's big downfall this season. As you've seen, we've only, I think, reached 270 kilometers once, and that was in slipstream at Spa. Since then, or before then, we've barely reached 255 kilometers an hour usually, and that's just due to the drag that this car possesses. There has been an incident between Johansson and Gerhard Berger in the pit lane, which we will have a look at a replay at the conclusion of this lap. You may have heard the race engineer mentioning it during this lap, but Martin Brundle is not focused on that. He is focused on this lap, and he's just exiting Spoon Curve and down that back straight towards the famous 130R corner, which is not flat in this car. Most definitely not. It's a massive lift for Brundle through this corner. He almost has to drop it down to 5th gear, but he keeps it in 6th, and then it's heavy on the brakes for the final chicane. You've got to spot that turn in. It's almost a blind corner, and there's no bollard or anything to indicate where the corner is. And through the curbs and on the accelerator down towards the line. This is Brundle's best lap in this session. It's not going to be anywhere near Prost, who's taken provisional pole. This time it's a 153.011, and let's take a replay of what happened between Johansson and Berger. Johansson, a bit of brain fade there, just failing to slow down for the car in front of him. A confirmation though that Alain Prost did go quickest in the session, but that wasn't to live long, as Martin Brundle on his second lap makes a mistake out of Spoon Curve, but Ayrton Senna, Prost's teammate, goes quickest. So it's a Honda 1-2 really, well, McLaren Honda 1-2, in front of Honda's home crowd. Andy Wallace missing a front wing for some reason. I think there was an issue in the pit lane. Talking to pit lane here is Martin Brundle rejoining onto the track to try again, but he can't match his previous best time, 3/10 down in his next time lap, and then on his following and final timed lap, he almost matches his time, but he does not improve. There was another issue between Tarquini and Modena, leaving Tarquini without front wing.
Senna!
And it is Ayrton Senna to claim yet another pole position, just ahead of his teammate Alain Prost. The two championship rivals line up alongside each other. It's a Ferrari second row with Berger ahead of Alboreto. Nelson Piquet in 5th place ahead of Riccardo Patrese, who's been in good form this weekend so far. Thierry Boutsen in the lead, Benetton is 7th, and the second Williams of Mansell in 8th place. Satoru Nakajima in front of his home crowd starts from 9th, with Alessandro Nannini rounding out the top 10. Warwick and Wallace, the two W's, on the 6th row of the grid, ahead of René Arnoux and Eddie Cheever. Stefan Johansson in the Ligier starts in 15th place. It's a 16th place start for second March driver Maurizio Gugelmin. Daumas and Alio, the two LaRouche drivers who are often separated by mere tenths, or not even that sometimes, in 17th and 18th. Palmer in 19th place with Alex Caffey in the Dallara car, who has seen a lot of improvement so far this season, in 20th. The AGS of Strife in 21st ahead of the two Minardis, Perez Sala in front of Martini. Julian Bailey makes it onto the grid with Martin Brundle in 25th place, and the final driver qualifying is Bernd Schneider in the Zach Speed. That means Niccolo Larini misses out. Modena and Tarquini miss out, the two drivers who actually collided during that session, and Oscar Larori last, almost 6 seconds off the pole time. Let's have a look at the race strategy. It is dry, it is sunny, projected, and the starting conditions of course, and the objective is to finish the race. Martin Brundle going for a very simple two-stop strategy, pitting on lap 15 and pitting on lap 30. There's only one more thing to do, and that's go racing. The 1988 Japanese Grand Prix is next. And here we are on the grid, Martin Brundle's Streamline ready to go racing, and the lights appear in front of us. 4 and 5, the Japanese Grand Prix is underway. The lights were held for a very long time, no stallers for once, but the driver on the left-hand side, I think that was Pierluigi Martini, getting really held up behind one of the AGS, well, the only AGS of Philipp Streif, and Brundle takes advantage by jumping to the inside line for turn 1, but then the concertina effect takes play in turn 2, but Brundle is up 3 positions to position 22, sandwiched between the two Tyrrells of Palmer and Bailey. And later on in the same lap, down towards the hairpin, is Brundle going to think about a move on the Tyrrell of Palmer, and he does so. We've had so many battles with Palmer so far this year, and here's another one. Up the inside goes Brundle to take that position away from Jonathan Palmer, and that's 21st place. A great start to the race for Brundle. Equally a good start for Senna, who's already stretching his legs at the front. He could win the championship if he finishes here and Prost finishes second. He has to outscore Prost by 4 points, and he leads Prost right now. Berger and Alboreto maintaining their positions, and so is Piquet and Patrese. Mansell up a position, Nannini up 1, Wallace up 1, Philippe Alliot up 4 positions. So a great start for Philippe Alliot, who started down in 18th place behind his teammate, and his teammate's actually lost out. No, he did start behind his teammate, and Dalmas has lost 2 positions, so a big swing there for the LaRouche drivers. We know Brundle is just outside the top 20, but it all remains the same for the top 6. Starting lap 2, Palmer to the outside. He's got better straight line speed than the Streamline of Brundle, but Brundle successfully defends that inside line as best he can. As here's an overtake, that is Derek Warwick re-overtaking Andy Wallace. He lost the position to Wallace at the start of the race, but Derek Warwick, the arrows, back up a position. And on lap 3, here is Martin Brundle, maybe trying to get a run on Perez Sala through that hairpin, but not quite working. The Minardi's not looking too quick today, as Johansson and Arnoux go wheel to wheel through the first deck there. Johansson takes that position, and now I believe that might be Alliot in front of him. So Alliot under pressure, the LaRouche, the French team, under pressure from the Ligier, the French team. Into the hairpin we go. Johansson to the inside, cutting across the curb, cutting across the grass, and forcing his way through. Well, almost through. They're side by side on the exit, and Alliot fights back, and the grunt of the LaRouche pulls himself ahead. So he maintains that position. So here's Martin Brundle under pressure from Jonathan Palmer. Surprise, surprise. Heading down towards that chicane at the end of the lap. On lap 7, Palmer on the outside. Brundle pinned to that inside line, and through goes Jonathan Palmer, not giving Brundle much space on the exit of the corner. But a great overtake from the Tyrrell, and the battle between those two rages on yet another lap. On lap 9 now, through the S's, and Palmer's ran wide. That's the chance Brundle needed to get back through. 21st place, still outside the top 20. But still respectable to be battling cars this far up the grid, as Perez Sala trying to force his way past Maurizio Gugelmin, the March driver, not doing as well as his teammate Andy Wallace, which is usually what we come to expect so far this year. As Brundle, that's a poor line up the hill through the S's, and there goes Palmer to re-overtake Brundle. These two drivers have been switching positions all the way through this race so far, and that battle is not over yet. As lap 10, it's the same lap. Brundle goes back to the inside for the hairpin, can't quite make his move on Palmer, who maintains the position for now. Lap 12 though, through Spoon Curve, Brundle spots an opportunity and takes it with both hands. Gugelmin next up. We know how fast the march is in a straight line, but maybe through the corners it might give an opportunity to Martin Brundle. He sends it up the inside, brilliant late braking, just about gets it slowed down and keeps it on the circuit. Gugelmin trying for the cutback, but on the exit of the corner, Brundle's actually got better run out of that corner, so maintains the position for half a lap, and then that's the straight line speed of the march. The Leighton House march, should I say, as Gugelmin retakes that position unless Brundle can send it into the final chicane, which he cannot do. So the March driver back up into 19th place. I think there might have been a driver in the pits, because this is a battle for 19th place now rather than 20th. As Gugelmin's still trying to struggle to hold back Martin Brundle, who swoops around the outside. That would be one hell of a move if he can pull it off. He can't quite do it around the outside, but up the inside into the following left-hander. Still unable to overtake the March. As on lap 15, race leader Ayrton Senna into the pits. He could be potentially on a 3-stop strategy, maybe a 2-stop strategy, of course. And Alain Prost stays out and takes the lead of the race. So the McLaren driver of Senna did pull out quite a gap to Prost, but not enough to stay ahead through the pit stop phase, as there's another driver in the pits in the background. I believe that's Gerhard Berger. There's Michele Alboreto. As Brundle setting this move up again, it's lap 15, round the outside of Gugelmin for 18th place. What a move that is. That might be Brundle's best move of the season. And Brundle doing so well on his fuel usage. He's extending this first stint by a few laps. And this is lap 16. Gugelmin trying to fight back against Brundle. Cuts across the first corner to try and take that place. Cuts across the second corner to try and take the place. And Brundle giving Gugelmin as much space as he could possibly need as they go through the S's side by side. It's a great battle. Well, it would be even a greater battle if Gugelmin wasn't cutting the corners. But he's still holding his march in there. Luckily, the race director's not paying attention to this battle. So Gugelmin in no danger of getting a penalty. And Gugelmin round the outside, up the hill we go, takes the position, and Brundle once again relegated. There's a massive train behind these two cars as Palmer makes contact with Brundle and forces his way through at the hairpin. Brundle checking for damage. No damage reported by Brundle over the pit radio, but Philip Strife manages to get through. So clearly there's an issue there for Martin. As lap 17 portrays, he's trying to find his way back through on Alessandro Nannini. Nannini took that position right at the start of the race, as I believe Patrese did qualify ahead of the Benetton. He's made it back through there, and who's that off? That's Philip Strife. Philip Strife off on lap 17. That may have been a big incident. Let's see what happened. He went through 130R and something broke. Something snapped on the car, maybe the suspension, and off he goes into the gravel. Luckily, no further damage done. That could have been a huge crash considering the speed taken into that corner. On lap 18, Jonathan Palmer under pressure, and up the inside goes Martin Brundle yet again to retake that position. It's been a fantastic battle between these two, and it's been raging on for the first 18 laps of this race. As we've reached lap 20 now, Prost back ahead of Senna, of course, after Senna's pit stop on lap 15. Michele Alboreto ahead of his teammate Gerhard Berger. Thierry Boutsen up 3 positions since the last update. Nelson Piquet down 2. That'll be due to the pit stop phase. Stefan Johansson up 4 positions, so he's looking good so far in the Ligier in a mid-pack position. Right now on screen we are seeing these two battle. I think it's Nakajima and Nannini. Satoru Nakajima at his home Grand Prix, of course, and Nannini trying it up the inside, but nothing coming of that right there through that final chicane. It'll be nice to see him get some points today, Nakajima. He's had, I think, 2 podiums this season, hasn't he? Of course, he's signed for another team for next season, another Honda team, of course, as Gugelmin gets overtaken by Brundle yet again. This is Brundle's pit stop lap. It's lap 19, so the Streamline's going to dive into the pits. But what I was saying about Nakajima, he's signed up for McLaren Honda next season, of course. That Honda backing is really helping him with that move, and he's going to be teammates with Ayrton Senna yet again, like he was in the previous season, I think 1987. So they're going to be a rekindled friendship, or at least a rekindled teamwork-ship. As a nice quick 8.2 second stop for Martin Brundle leaves him out in 23rd place. Andy Wallace has been battling with Derek Warwick in the early stages of this Grand Prix, but sadly for the March it's all over. He spins off after turn 2 and he's the next retirement in this Grand Prix. Disaster there for Andy Wallace, who started his career in Formula 1 really promising in the first few races, but since then has not done too much in favour of his own performances, of course. And Nannini and Nakajima battling away. This is for 9th place. We saw this battle a few laps ago and Nakajima was solidly ahead of Nannini, but this time Nannini has a run down the back straight towards 130R. He'll have that inside line. Can he manage to hold his Benetton in there? He's going to try, and there's contact, I believe, between the two drivers, and they both go through unscathed. Nannini to the inside line for that final chicane. Can he finally get through on Nakajima? Nakajima jumping across the chicane to maintain the position. As on lap 25, this is the battle for the lead of the race. Prost under pressure from Ayrton Senna. Senna getting to the inside line through Spoon Curve. Pulls side by side with his teammate and takes the position. Senna leads the Grand Prix here in Japan, and that's the move he needed to win the championship. But Prost is not going to let up lightly, and he's got Slipstream, a big helping of Slipstream down this back straight and pulls side by side to the inside line for 130R and takes the position. Senna is not going to be happy with that, as Prost back in position to take this title fight all the way to the final race at Adelaide next time, round 16 of course, as Piquet, that's the end of his race. Honda engine blowing up on the main straight, which is not a good sign if you are a fellow Honda runner, i.e. his teammate Nakajima, or the two McLarens, who right now, I don't want to jinx anything, right now are still in the race. Is Gerhard Berger the next on the casualty list? That is an engine failure yet again. So we've already seen a few engine failures today. Lap 28, and there is the aforementioned Nakajima. And no engine failure at least, but he's gone off! He's gone off and he's round, and that is Nakajima out of the race. That looks to be a brake failure into the final chicane. Luckily, no damage done in terms of crashing into a wall, but he's definitely out of the race as Prost into the pits on lap 28, which will surrender his lead to Ayrton Senna. They've been battling on track. They've been battling through the pit stops. It's been a great fight between the two McLarens. Clean so far. Nobody taking each other out into any of the corners, which is nice to see, is on lap 32. Senna in the lead, Prost second, Alboreto in third, the sole Ferrari remaining in the race. Both Williams in the top 5. That's great for their battle between them and Benetton in the championship. The two Benettons 6th and 7th. Benetton right now, I think, are about 3 or 4 points ahead of Williams in the championship, so that's huge. There's been some big gainers down in the midfield. Yannick Damas gaining 6 positions since the last update. Luis Perez Sala gaining 7 positions since the last update. And Martin Brundle, who we always focus on, of course, he is the Streamline driver. He is in 15th place, which is pretty good. Streamline's best result so far this season was a 10th place finish achieved back at the Belgian Grand Prix in summertime, as Maurizio Gugelmin, his teammate out of the race, you can see in the background there, and Gugelmin is not going to go any further either. Engine failure again, yet another engine failure sees him out this race. Schneider into the back of him. Senna gives him a little love tap as well, but no damage done to either of those cars apart from Gugelmin. Of course, he's out of this race as lap 32 now, and that's Brundle getting passed by Pierluigi Martini. Brundle complaining about a lack of power down the straights, but all seems fine with the car so far, as lap 35, Ayrton Senna in from the lead of this race. And will Alain Prost make it through again? He will, so Prost retakes the lead. He's doing all he needs to do right now, and I think he's fueled to the end of the race as well. Sadly though, Johansson will not be going any further, as he's got an issue with his Ligier's gearbox, and on lap 36 he brings it in to retire the car from the race. No good for him there. Lap 36, and there's smoke billowing out the back of the Streamline. Martin Brundle, he was complaining about losing power, and that power is definitely being lost, as Alex Caffey now is going to make things worse for the Streamline team. He moves through, and Martin Brundle down to 15th place, and it's only a matter of time before he retires from this one, as Arno and Daumas trying to contend with traffic. There's a Tyrrell in the way. Daumas moves through pretty easily, but that Tyrrell, I think it might be Palmer, not doing Arno any favours at all in his battle with Daumas. Arno was battling with Alio earlier on in the race, and has now been battling with Alio's teammate Daumas, and still can't get through on Jonathan Palmer. Lap 37, and things go from bad to worse for Martin Brundle as Luis Perez Sala in the Minardi moves through. Up the inside through 130R, it's a nice healthy move. And on lap 38, it all comes to a head with Martin Brundle pulling off the circuit in Sector 1 to retire the car. It is another engine failure. Streamline's pre-season aim was to finish 50% of the races. 8 races this season, and right now they've finished 7. So if they don't finish in Adelaide, they would have failed their pre-season targets, which will not look good on team manager James Early. Not good at all. Lap 40, Ayrton Senna trying to get past some traffic. That's Eddie Cheever in his way, and Cheever causing himself a real nuisance. Senna's gone wide, and Senna's crashed into Brundle. Senna's crashed into Brundle's car, who was stationary on the exit of that left-hander, as Senna is carrying on, but he's not for long, as that's engine failure now. He only lost his front wing, but engine failure is going to see him retire from that race. And what does that mean for the championship? Well, it means that if Prost holds on to this victory, which he now has the lead of, he'll be 4 points ahead of Senna going into the final round, and it would be advantage Alain Prost in his aim to win 3 championships. Of course, he won in 85 and 86, and he's going for another one here in 1988. Alboreto up to 2nd place. He's gone under the radar today. Michele Alboreto has had a fantastic season. If you disregard the 2 injuries he's had, he's won races. In fact, every race he's finished so far this season has been on the podium. He has had a few retirements, and of course he's had 2 separate injury spells. But he's so good. It's so disappointing to see that Alboreto has not been signed up to Ferrari for next season. But maybe his age has some effect on the decisions made at Maranello. As Patrese trying to put pressure on Mansell. He was ahead of Mansell only a few laps ago. Mansell did manage to get through, and this is for the final podium place. But Patrese, who's been in such good form this weekend, can't squeeze through on his teammate Nigel Mansell. And Jonathan Palmer, who's, well, he's out the race. There you go. Another engine failure. Almost makes contact with Andy Wallace's car, which has already been left by the marshals on the exit of turn 2. And that's another retirement. A lot of retirements today, but I'll tell you one driver who was not retired from this race, and who was not retired from the championship fight. Alain Prost exits the final corner for the final time, and after 51 epic laps of racing, he wins here in Japan to take the championship lead and to take the fight to his teammate Ayrton Senna. The gap now is 4 points between them, but it's swung the other way. 4 points in front is Alain Prost. Ayrton Senna is going to be in second place in the championship, but Prost wins the race by 24 seconds ahead of the Ferrari of Alboreto, who keeps his streak up of finishing on the podium every time he's finished a race. Mansell holds off his Williams teammate Patrese for the final podium place. Boutsen and Nannini make it 2 Benettons in the points, followed by the 2 Arrows just missing out on points. Warwick, the final driver, on the lead lap ahead of his teammate Cheever. Arnoux in 9th place, then it's the 2 LaRouche drivers 10th and 11th, Alliot and Daumas. Then it's the 2 Minardis of Perisella and Martini. Alex Caffey 2 laps down and in 14th place. And Bernd Schneider 15th place for the Zach Speed car. And he's gone back-to-back 15th place finishes, but not quite as good as his 12th place finish at the opening round of the season. Julian Bailey, the final driver on the classification, who's actually finished the race, albeit 3 laps down. And then a whole host of retirements. So many engine failures today. Palmer, Senna and Brundle all guilty of that engine failure. Johansson retired through gearbox issues. Gugelmin, Berger and Piquet out through engine failure, and 3 brake failures, Nakajima, Wallace and Philip Strife. Ayrton Senna, although retiring from the race in a weird manner, he did claim another fastest lap. But it doesn't mean much. You don't get any points for the fastest laps, and Alain Prost has a 4-point lead in the championship ahead of his teammate Senna. Berger in 3rd place now ahead of Nelson Piquet, so that's been not switched around, sorry, because of course Berger retired. Alboreto though is closing in, which means it's a 3-way fight for that 3rd place in the championship with just 1 race to go. It'll be, I think, 80 laps of the Adelaide Street Circuit for the Australian Grand Prix. 20 drivers have scored points so far this season, no new drivers scoring points, and no change in the order here, with the best of the rest drivers scoring 0 points. They're ordered by their best finish in the race. Quite a few drivers have scored a 7th place finish, yet no points, including Jean-Louis Schlesser, who I completely forgot filled in for Patrese for that round, I believe, at Detroit. And Martin Brundle down there in 30th place. Julian Bailey, he's been back for 4 races and he's finished 3 of those races, yet still finds himself 36th and last in the championship. Onto the Constructors' Championship, and of course McLaren won the championship a couple rounds ago. Ferrari in 2nd place. They cannot be chased down by Lotus. Lotus have that 3rd place lockdown. Ferrari have 2nd place lockdown, so the top 3 cannot switch around anymore. But the battle for 4th place between Arrows, Williams and Benetton is very hot indeed. Williams overtaking Benetton in that championship fight for the top 5 this round. Streamline still down there in 16th place. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This has been quite a long video, over 30 minutes, which is pretty good, and I really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. Make sure to join the Discord if you want to vote for the reserve driver, and of course make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.